Well, hello guys. Hi. How are you guys doing? Oh, Zara, you did not have to give me any biddies. Thank you. So, before anything else, before I get into anything, before I get into anything, before I get into anything. Yes, I did. All right, before we get into anything, it's picked out by viewers. So, I don't have any of my lights on. This is terrible. So behind. Oh, it's too low. Alexa, turn light 1 to 10. Alexa, turn light 1 to 10%. Okay, hold on. I gotta turn on the right? I love it. It's great. Hold on. I had to adjust it a little bit. It was a little too far back. There we go. Viewers picked this out. It was a vote. It was like 6. Like the max number I got was 6. I'm doing good. How are you doing, RJ? Sorry, there's a bunch of you. I'm sorry. Because she doesn't listen. She's gonna get replaced with Google. She's gonna get replaced. It's gonna happen. Okay. Oh, I'm happy to hear that, RJ. How's everybody else doing? Alright, Zara. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm a pretty fucking princess. My camera's not in the right area. There we go. Hey, look at the camera. God damn it. There we go. I need a standalone freaking microphone. Freaking. This thing sucks. I also like if it's a if you guys do sound alerts, if it's a loud enough sound alert, I'll hear it. Most of them I probably won't hear. Hi. How are you doing? Thank you for dropping in. I appreciate it. Okay, so we are doing mythology and just kind of let me bask in the fact that I have my crown. Loving it. Okay. So I'm gonna try and finish up Egyptian today for mythology. And then have you guys vote on what's going next. There are 3 choices. But I will not reveal that till towards the end. I'm a pretty fucking princess. Fun fact, I ran through the house screaming that when I opened it. Crown on my head and everything. Ran through the house screaming. Ah, okay, hold on. It's like trying to find the right placement though is like hard because like I don't want it too far back because then it'll fall. But if it's not far enough forward, then you guys don't see it, which is a fucking problem. But I can't also like put it on the top of my head because I don't have that. I don't have the right head shape. Hi, JJ. Took me like an hour. Do all this freaking makeup though. What do you mean, JJ? Give me 1 second. Hi, Panda. Hi, Knob. Hi, everybody. There's so many people. Hi. Hi. There's so many people. Hi, guys. Pixels, you did not have to give me any biddies. Thank you so much.
Hello, motherfucker.
Okay, I did hear that. Kind of. Hi. You guys are amazing. Oh my god. Okay, my cloak is gonna piss me the fuck off. Scary. Okay, if this thing. Okay, so the princess thing comes because when I got this crown and I got it and I opened it because I got home and it's here. I ran through the house yelling, "I'm a pretty fucking princess." But for the sake of argument, everybody call I drop in a lot of people's streams and they all call me queen, and so that's where it comes from. Yeah, I had like crown on my head and everything, like holding it to my head like this, screaming, "I'm a pretty fucking princess" as I ran through the house. I was super excited. If this cloak continues to be a bitch, I'm just gonna take it off. So, it's already come undone like 8 times today, and it's pissing me off. Okay. Right? Like, forget I got it and I was just like, I got super excited. I was so freaking excited. Nope, didn't dye my hair. This is all natural. I've been out in like sunlight and stuff. I've been out in light and everything, like natural light and everything a little bit more, so it's lightened up. So, um, so my hair's been lightening up a lot. Um, because of it. Yes. And it matches the whole witch queen vibes. And I'm like, oh wait, no, hold on, I gotta turn it around. It's gotta be the little frickin'. It's gotta be the speeder. For doing witch queen vibes, it has to be the spider. Yes. I had to make its little eyes show. I wish I could just like perch it up on my shoulder, but I can't because it'll just fall. But he will be back here. The reason I've been having him, I have had it on the pumpkin side though, is because it blends in with my curtains. If I have it on this side, so I have to have it on the pumpkin side. It's sitting on my crown. That's the only way I can have him, because if I put him in my crown, he's gonna fall. Because it's too far back on my head. There we go. I have the pumpkin spider on my head now. Yes. Okay, this is where we were. Okay. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Come inside, it's fun inside. Oh god. Okay, no, I can't have him up here. It's really weird, like trying to move my head around. It's just extra weight, like on top of my head. Okay, fuck this thing. This thing's gonna get really annoying because I don't have a lot of fucking arm movement. It also doesn't help that I have, you know, my headphones are on my neck because I don't have a standalone mic. But it was pretty good. It was raining earlier, which was upsetting. But it didn't get too bad, so it wasn't, you know, wasn't all that horrible. I have to like twist it. Like you have to put it on and then like twist it to get it to stay. It's so fucking weird. Okay. That should work. Alright. Anyways, on to Mythology Wednesday because I didn't stream Monday because of the holiday. My hair is not cooperating behind the crown. Can you fucking hair stop? I should have done like an updo with my hair realistically, but I don't know that one, JJ. This is not one I know. Hi, Dad. Thank you. Okay. So, we're going to continue where we left off. We ended with Nut last week, which is the Primordial Sky Goddess, and I'm just gonna do a review of her real quick, and then go back, and then continue from there. I am hoping to get this finished today, so next week I can start a new one. Fingers crossed I can get this done today. So we left on it. We ended on Nut, the Primordial Sky Goddess, who. What the fuck? Who personified the. No, it's okay. Personified the canopy of the heavens, wife of Geb, earth, mother of Osiris, Isis, Set, Nephthys, and Horus the elder. At the primordial mount. Hold on. I gotta adjust this a little bit. So, like, because I have to turn my head to look at my other monitor. Shit. I apologize. Ugh. After the primordial mound rose from the waters of chaos at creation, Autumn Ra sent his children Shu and Tefnut out to create the world. When they returned, he was so happy he shed tears of joy, which became human beings. These creatures had nowhere to live, so Shu and Tefnut mated to give birth to Geb and Nut. The relationship was so intimate that it disturbed Autumn, who pushed Nut high above Geb and fixed her there. He also decreed that she could not give birth on any day of the year. Thoth, the god of wisdom, gambled with Aya, god of the moon, and won 5 days' worth of moonlight, which he transformed into days. Nut was able to then give birth to her 5 children on 5 consecutive days in July, which were not part of Autumn's original. In some versions of this story, it is Khonsu who loses the gamble with Thoth. Ugdod. The 8 gods representing primordial elements of creation, Nu and Nonet, water, He and Hahet for infinity, Kek and Kakhet for darkness, Amun and Amunet for hiddenness and obscurity, The concept of balance, so important to Egyptian culture, was epitomized in the various ogdoads of Egyptian gods slash spirits of place. Honorius, or Anhur. He was a god of war and hunting. His names mean he who brings back the distant one, which is a reference to a story about his retrieval of the Eye of Ra from Nubia. In this tale, the Eye of Ra goes forth from Egypt and transforms itself into a lion. Honorius hunts the lion, captures it, and returns it to Ra, where it transforms into the goddess Mekhet, who then becomes his consort. This story is an example of the distant goddess motif in which the Eye of Ra departs from the sun god and then is returned or returns itself, bringing transformation. Honorius was considered a son of Ra and associated with the god Shu. His image as Anhur appeared on the banners of the Egyptian army as he led them to war, protected them in battle, and brought them safely home. He was the patron god of the Egyptian army and of hunters. I really should be wearing my glasses, wherever the fuck they are right now. Don't mind my snacks. I have to have snacks. I can't live without snacks. If I don't have snacks, I get angry. And I have lots of cookies right now, so I'm really happy. Will you look at the people? It's rude. Thank you. I'm talking to my fucking stuffed animal again. I need a name for him. Okay. Oh god, fucking mascara and fucking glasses. Ugh! This is why I don't wear false lashes. This is why. Osiris. Osiris, Lord and Judge of the Dead, one of the first 5 gods born of Mutt at the dawn of creation, and one of the most popular and enduring gods of Egypt. Pun King? Maybe. I don't know, if I get a few ideas, I'll put them up for vote by the community. His name means powerful or mighty. Osiris was originally a fertility god. I haven't gotten there yet. Osiris was originally a fertility god who grew in popularity and influence through the Osiris myth, in which he is killed by his brother Set, brought back to life by his wife Isis, fathers sky god Horus, and descends to the underworld as judge of the dead. In the adjust here for a minute. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, he is mentioned frequently as the just judge in the Hall of Truth, who weighs the heart of souls of the dead against the white feather of Mott. He's an early example of the dying and reviving God figure in mythology who lent himself to the later version of this figure, Jesus Christ. Egyptian kings identified themselves with Osiris in death, and he is usually depicted as a mummy, symbolizing death, and with green or black skin, symbolizing the fertility of the Nile region and life. He was so popular that people in ancient Egypt paid to have their bodies buried at Abydos near his cult center, and those who could not afford that would pay for memorials to be erected to them or their loved ones at Abydos, believing that proximity to Osiris on earth guaranteed easier access to paradise after death. His cult naturally merged with that of his wife, and the cult of Isis, with its symbolism of salvation, eternal life, the dying and reviving God, and the divine son born of a virgin mother, would later influence the development of early Christianity. Hold on, I had to change it over gameplay so you guys can see the picture. Hold on. Is this the picture? Oh my god, my glasses. Osiris-Apis. The Apis bull, traditionally associated with hair. Quit. Traditionally associated with the god Ptah, became linked to Osiris as the latter god grew more popular. At Saqqara, the priests began to worship a hybrid god they called Osiris-Apis, who is the god in bull form. As with the traditional Apis bull, a live bull was considered an incarnation of the god. When the sacred bull died, it was mummified with the same care given a king. Pakhet, a hunting goddess in lioness form. Her name means she who scratches or terror. She was a consort of Horus and associated with the vengeful aspects of Sekhmet and the justice of Isis. She was thought to hunt at night and terrify her enemies. I'm not going to try and say that name because I will probably fuck it up, so I'm going to have it on screen. The child god, personification of the king as divine son of Horus and also of Horus as a child. He was depicted as a young boy with his finger to his lips, prefiguring the later image of Harpocrates, the Greek version of the child Horus. His name means Lord of the Two Lands. He was the son of Tassanetnofret, a local goddess of Kom-Ombu, who was a manifestation of Hathor. Panda, you did not have to give me any biddies. You did not have to do that. The Taikos, minor amuletic deities who represented the power of the god Ptah. They were depicted as dwarf. Can I English? Oh, hi, Trash Panda. Depicted as dwarf gods and worn for protection. Known as Peak of the West. Known as Peak of the West, the personification of the highest peak of the cliffs which overshadowed the Valley of the Kings and worshipped by the workers at Deir el-Medina as a protective power. Patis and Pahor. I'm such a child sometimes. Panda, you did not. I'm not. You just wanted my emotes. It's okay, everybody wants my emotes. They're cute. Okay. To Patis and Pahor. Oh my god. Because of the makeup, like my glasses are not staying as well. And so they're like slipping down and it's gonna irritate me, but if I don't have them on, it's hard to read. Two human brothers known as the Sons of Cooper who drowned in the Nile River near Dender. They were deified for their association with Osiris, stemming right. But I'm working to make some new ones. It's a bit of a process though, because I want it to look a specific way, so it's gonna take a little while, and I suck at posing and facial expressions. But it's okay. Anyways. They were deified for their association with Osiris, stemming from their death in the river, and served as local deities of protection. Augustus Caesar built a temple in their honor at Dender, which is now on display at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. The temple's reliefs show the god brothers offering gifts to Isis. I really should just read it over here because it's bigger over here, but if I look here, I actually like it on the screen and I'm actually like looking at you guys. Ptah, one of the oldest Egyptian gods who appears in the first dynastic period, but most likely dates from the pre-dynastic period. Ptah was the great god of Memphis, creator of the world, lord of truth, and chief god of the city of Memphis and its surrounding area. Ptah was originally the figure who stood on the primordial mound of the Ben at the creation of the world. He was probably an early fertility god and is associated with the moringa tree, which, in an early myth, he liked to rest beneath. He was the patron god of sculptors and craftsmen, as well as builders of monuments, as he was thought to have sculpted the earth. He was sometimes known as Ptah Nun or Ptah Nunet in his creative aspect, linking him with the primordial substances of the Ogdad. He is depicted as a mummified man wearing a skull cap, holding the Waz scepter of authority with the Ankh and Djed symbols at the top. Ptahhotep, author of one of the more famous wisdom texts, who was deified after his death and honored with his own cult. Ptah Sokar Osiris, a hybrid god of these three associated with creation, death, and rebirth, worshipped in the period of the Middle Kingdom. Okay, so that one we went over in K's, so that one is not important. Oh, is that what I want to do? There we go. I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce that. I will fuck that up so bad. But, so you guys can see it and see what I deal with. I'm trying to read off half of these names. It's not fun. But a protector god, one of the four sons of Horus who protected the canopic jar of the intestines. He presided over the west, had the form of a hawk, and was watched over by Serket. I'm gonna go with Kadesh, Syrian goddess of love, consort of the war god Reshep, assimilated into Egyptian worship during the New Kingdom. She was the goddess of sexual pleasure and sacred ecstasy, who is associated with Hathor, Anat, and Astarte. Her name means holy, and she is always depicted as a slim, naked woman holding the symbols of eroticism and fertility. Lotus blossoms in her right hand and snakes or papyrus stems in her left. She was widely venerated throughout Egypt. Her cult reenacted the sacred marriage between Kudshu and Reshep, a ritual long associated with the cult of Ishtar and Inanna in Mesopotamia and Astarte in Phoenicia. It has water in it. Ra, Atum or Re, the great sun god of Heliopolis, whose cult spread across Egypt to become the most popular by the 5th dynasty. I went over Bastet, like those were like one of the first ones I went over, and like all her sisters and all the other cat goddesses because of one of my viewers. She is a cat person, and she was actually the reason I did Egyptian. She wanted to learn about them. I was like, bet. Okay. The pyramids of Giza are associated with Ra as the supreme lord and creator god who ruled over the land of the living and the dead. He drives his sun barge across the heavens by day, showing another aspect of himself with each advance of the sun across the sky. And then dives into the underworld at evening, where the barge is threatened by the primordial serpent Apep, or Apophis, and must be defended by the other gods and souls of the justified dead. Ra was among the most important and popular gods of Egypt. Even when the god Amun rose in prominence, Ra's position was undiminished, and he merged with Amun to become Amun-Ra, the supreme god. I'm not gonna try and pronounce. Yes. So this is the second one I did. Before this, I did for this I did Nordic. And then you guys will be able to pick which one I do after this. Rate or Raytawe. She was the female aspect of Ra. She's a child. Is that necessary? Hi, Scooter. She was the female aspect of Ra. She is associated with Hathor and is depicted as closely resembling Hathor, with the arrays on her head holding the solar disk, sometimes with 2 feathers over the disk. Ra, Hurrah. Nope. I'm not gonna try. A falcon god amalgam of Ra and Horus, who personified the sun at the 2 horizons, sunrise and sunset. Herakte means Horus of the horizon. He is depicted as a man with a hawk's head, wearing the solar disk as a crown. Renpet. A goddess who personified the year. She is represented in inscriptions by a notched palm branch, signifying the passing of time. The hieroglyphic image for year. She had no formal cult or temple, but was an integral part of the Egyptians' understanding of time, that it was imbued, like everything else, with personality and vitality. Renault New Tech. Renault New Tech. A very important goddess, depicted as a cobra or a rearing cobra with the head of a woman. Her name means snake who nourishes, and she was god of nursing and rearing children. In time, she became closely associated with Sekhmet, goddess of childbirth and destiny, and even superseded her to determine the length of a person's life and significant events which would befall them. Along with Sekhmet, she was also associated with Neith and sometimes portrayed as the mother of Osiris, with Isis as the wife of Osiris and mother of Horus, as Atum's wife or consort. In the afterlife, she appeared as the okay. There we go. Here, hold on. There we go. In the afterlife, she appeared as the Lady of Justification, linking her with the goddess Mott. She was thought to protect the clothing worn by the king in the afterlife and was also known as Lady of the Robes. In this capacity, she appeared as a fire-breathing cobra who drove away the enemies of the king. She was also a grain goddess known as Lady of the Fertile Fields and Lady of the Granaries, who protected the harvest and was the mother of Nepri, god of grain. As a fertility goddess, she was further linked to the Nile River and the inundation, and so with Hapi, the god of the fertile mud of the Nile. Reret, a protector deity in the form of a hippopotamus, whose name means so. She represented the constellation Draco and was a protectress of the sun barge as it made its way through the underworld. As the constellation, she is sometimes known as Reret Weret, the Great Sow, and was referred to as Mistress of the Horizon. She is associated with the better-known hippopotamus goddess Taweret, and as a sky goddess and protective force with Hathor and Nut. Reship, a Syrian war god assimilated into Egyptian worship during the period of the New Kingdom. He was the yeah. He was the he was the consort of the goddess of sexual pleasure and sacred ecstasy, ecstasy, Kudshu, and was worshipped with her in a triad which included the fertility god Min. The sacred marriage of Kudshu and Reshep was reenacted by their followers, linking the cult to that of Inanna/Ishtar of Mesopotamia, which had long practiced the same ritual. Reshep is further linked to Mesopotamia through his identification in iconography with the Mesopotamian war god Nergal. As a god of pestilence, he is also linked to Set, god of chaos and the arid wastes. Reshep is uniformly depicted as a strong warrior holding a raised war club and wearing a skirt and long Mesopotamian styled beard. Where did my mouse go? There it is. I think. There it is. Okay. Ready. The twin lion gods who represented the eastern and western horizons. The name means pair of lions. They were originally associated with Shu and Tefnut as sky deities and eventually became linked with Ra and the solar barge. Saw, an astro god personification of the constellation Orion, usually paired with Sothis as representations of the astral forms of Osiris and Isis. He was referred to as father of the gods in the pyramid texts and was an important aspect of funerary rites where he welcomed the king to the afterlife. Then also as the dweller in Orion, pyramid text chapter 186 welcomes the soul. In the name of the dweller in Orion, with a season in the sky and a season on earth, which can be understood as with a season in the sky after a season on earth, he is depicted as a man holding the Ankh and was scepter standing in a boat surrounded by stars in a night sky. Okay, I'm gonna have to read over here because this isn't big enough and my eyes are hurting trying to read it. Satis, goddess of the southern border of Egypt with Nubia and associated with Elephantine in the region of Aswan. Her name first appeared. Hold on. There we go. Let's start that over because my mic was not in the right place. Satis, goddess of the southern border of Egypt with Nubia and associated with Elephantine in the region of Aswan. Her name first appears on stone jars at Saqqara, which were placed inside the lower chambers of Dosir's step pyramid, and she is thought to be an older goddess from the pre-dynastic period of Egypt. She is sometimes seen as a consort of Khnum, god of the Nile, at Elephantine, where the Egyptians believe the river originated, and is associated with the Eye of Ra and distant goddess motive in some tales, where she returns from a great distance to bring transformation. In this capacity, she is linked to the inundation of the Nile. She is also linked to Sothis, the personification of the star Sirius, whose appearance in the night sky heralded the inundation. She is depicted as a woman wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt with antelope horns. I'm going to go with Sebiu-Mekher. I'm probably not right. That's what I'm going to go with because that's what sounds right to me. A guardian god who is a major deity in Meroe-Kush as god of protection, of procreation and fertility. Sebiu-Mekher is associated with Atum. Oh, thank you, Scooter. I appreciate it. Sebiomaker is associated with Atum as a creator god and may have been the supreme god of the pantheon in the region which is modern-day Sudan. His statuary, along with another god named Tabo, has often been found near doorways, giving rise to the interpretation that he was a guardian god. He may not have been, however. His placement in doorways could have had some meaning touching on transformation, especially when placed at the doorways of temples. Said, an ancient jackal deity whose name first appears on the Palermo stone of the 5th dynasty, but who's most likely much older. He was the protector of kingship and the individual king. He presided over the said festival, also known as the Hebsed festival, which was held every 30 years of a king's rule to rejuvenate him. He was eventually absorbed by Wepawet, or it could be that Wepawet, whose name means opener of the ways, was simply one of Sed's epithets, which became more popular. As protector of the divine king, Sed was associated with justice and so linked to the goddess Mott. Sekhmet. One of the most significant goddesses of ancient Egypt, Sekhmet was a leonine deity usually depicted as a woman with the head of a lion. Her name means powerful and is usually interpreted as the female powerful one. She was a goddess of destruction and healing, of desert winds and cool breezes. She was the daughter of Ra, who appears in one of the most important stories concerning the Eye of Ra/distant goddess motive. When Ra became tired of the sins of humanity, he sent Sekhmet to destroy them. She ravaged the land until the other gods implored Ra to stop her before humans were destroyed completely. Ra had a vat of beer dyed red to attract Sekhmet's bloodlust and left it at Dendera, where she drank it and fell into a deep sleep. When she woke, she was the benevolent Hathor. Sekhmet continued to exist in her leonine form, however, and was the patron deity of the military for her powers of destruction and vengeance. She was known as Smiter of the Nubians in this regard, but she also brought natural disaster. Plagues were known as messengers of Sekhmet or slaughterers of Sekhmet. In the same way that she could bring the desert winds, she could deflect them, and the same with pestilence. Just as she had brought the plague, she could cure it and was known as Mistress of Life in this capacity, and so frequently invoked in healing spells and incantations by ancient doctors. She was closely associated with other leonine deities such as Bastet and Paquette, and was thought to be the aggressive, violent aspect of the goddess Mutt. Sepa, a protector god in the form of a centipede with the head of a donkey or horns, known as the centipede of Horus. He is worshipped as the deity who protected one from snake bites, and some form of Sepa was venerated in the pre-dynastic period. He had his own temple at Heliopolis, where he was associated with Horus in a mummified form, symbolizing his protective powers in the afterlife. Serapis, the hybrid god created by Ptolemy the First, Soter of Egypt, first ruler of the Ptolemaic, Ptolemaic dynasty, the last dynasty to rule Egypt before it was taken under Roman governance. Serapis was a blend of Osiris and Apis, but his character and attributes were a blending of these two Egyptian deities with the Greek gods Zeus, Helios, Dionysus, Hades, and Asclepius. He was the supreme deity worshipped at the famous Serapeum near the Library of Alexandria. Ptolemy the First wanted to create the kind of multicultural society his late commander and role model Alexander the Great had attempted, and Serapis was an important component in this. Serapis was a complete blend of Egyptian and Greek ideals who suited the kind of society Ptolemy the First encouraged. My nose is running. It's gonna be really annoying. There we go. Serapis, a leonine protective goddess, probably from Libya. She is only mentioned in a 5th dynasty inscription as a goddess of a region of Egypt inhabited mainly by Libyans, the 3rd Lower Egypt nome. Like the other leonine deities, she is a fierce protector of her followers and avenges wrongs done to them. Serket. Serket, or Circus. She was a protective and also an important funerary goddess, probably originating in the pre-dynastic period and first mentioned during the 1st dynasty of Egypt. She is best known from her golden statue found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. Serket was a scorpion goddess depicted as a woman with a scorpion on her head and arms outstretched in a protective pose. She may have been an early mother goddess who evolved into a deity who protected people, especially children, from scorpion venom, and then to one who protected from all venom. A story known as Isis and the Seven Scorpions tells of how Isis was insulted by a rich woman once, and Serket, who had sent her 7 scorpions along as Isis bodyguards, instructed one of them to sting the woman's son. The boy was going to die from the venom, but Isis saved him and forgave the woman. Afterwards, Serket followed Isis' example of forgiveness and protected other children from scorpions. Her priests were largely physicians who invoked her name in healing. Hold on, my mom messaged me. Give me a second. Okay. My mom messaged me. She wanted to know she wanted to see what I was wearing. So it's my mother, and she's nosy. I love her though. I'm waiting for her to ask me where I got a crown. Anyways. Where the fuck was I? Oh. Our priests were largely physicians who invoked her name in healing. In the afterlife, she helped guide the souls of the dead to paradise and protect a certain dangerous section of travel. Along with Isis, Neith, and Nephthys, she watches over the 4 sons of Horus as they guard the viscera of the dead in tombs. Can my... I don't have any YouTube... Oh, okay. Shishat. She is the goddess of writing, books, notations, and measurements. Her name means the female scribe, and she is the consort of Thoth, god of wisdom and writing, though sometimes she is depicted as his daughter. She is the patroness of libraries, both public and private, and was known as the she who is foremost in the house of books. She is also the patron goddess of scribes. As goddess of measurements, she ensured the king measured correctly in commissioning the building of temples and monuments and assisted him in measurements for rituals. She is first mentioned in the 2nd dynasty as helping King... I'm not going to try and pronounce that, but you guys can see it. In this regard, her association with measurements eventually made her the patroness of builders, architects, and those who dealt in accounting for cattle, other animals, and captives seized in war. Although she never had a temple of her own, as R.H. Wilkinson observes, by virtue of her role in the foundation ceremony, she was a part of every temple building. She is depicted as a woman wearing a leopard skin over a robe with a headband holding a stick with a star on top. She holds a writing implement in her right hand and the notched palm stalk representing the year's passage in her left. Where's Panda? 'Cause he wanted this next one. That's a long one. Holy shit. All of these have been really long. Crown, can you fucking stay put, please? Where's Panda? He wanted this next one. It's the one you wanted. Set, or Seth. God of war, chaos, storms, and pestilence. His name is translated as instigator of confusion and destroyer. He's depicted as a red beast with cloven hooves and a forked tail, and is the prototype for the later iconography of the Christian devil. Set was originally a hero god who drove away the serpent Apep, or Apophis, from the barge of the sun god and killed it nightly. My glasses need to fucking stop sliding. Ugh. He was a desert god who brought the evil winds of the dry lands to the lush Nile Valley and was associated with foreign lands and people. His consorts were Nott and Astarte, both goddesses associated with war and both from foreign countries, as well as Taweret, the benign productive goddess of childbirth and fertility. Set is often characterized as evil and did manifest many evil qualities, but was not regarded by the ancient Egyptians as an embodiment of evil or darkness. He was rather seen as a necessary balance to gods like Osiris and Horus, who represented all things noble and good, fertility, vitality, and eternity. Set is best known as the world's first murderer in the myth of Osiris, where he kills his brother to usurp the throne. Isis returns Osiris to life, but because he is incomplete, descends to the underworld as Lord of the Dead. Isis gives birth to Osiris' son, Horus, who grows up to challenge Set for the throne. Their battles, which lasted for 80 years, are described in the text, the contendings of Horus and Set, and were resolved in one version by Isis, while in another by Neith, with Horus declared rightful king and Set banished to the desert lands. Shea, the personification of fate. Shea presided over one's personal destiny, and so was associated with goddesses like Sekhmet and Runantet. Similar to the fates of the ancient Greeks, no one could resist or alter Shea's decisions. The scholar Wilkinson cites a text known as Instructions of Amenemopet, which states, "None can ignore Shea." This statement The statement epitomizes Shea's chief characteristics, inevitability. He is depicted as being present at the weighing of the heart of the soul in the afterlife, or as a man standing in the posture of patience. During the Ptolemaic dynasty, when Egyptian gods were Hellenized, he was known as Agathodamon, the serpent deity who could tell one's future. No. Ah. Right. Did my hold on, I gotta check something real quick. Did my Yes it did. Okay. Sorry, I just had to check my title, make sure that actually changed, because sometimes it doesn't, because it's stupid. actually surprised it's staying on so well. I'm actually really happy about that. It's staying on really well. Okay. Shed. There we go. Okay. I gotta hold this over here. Shed. A protective god who guarded against personal harm from wild animals or mortal enemies. He was invoked by hunters and soldiers and known as He Who Rescues and the Enchanter. He was lord of the wild animals and weapons, and so could control both to protect a person who invoked his name. He was also sought in protection against magic spells cast by one enemies, and possibly against demons or ghosts. He is depicted as a young man with shaved head, except for the sidelock denoting youth, and carries a quiver of arrows. He often grasped serpents in his hands as though crushing them. Eventually, his attributes were absorbed by Horus, although he was still venerated by people in their homes and through amulets. I'm going to have a small snack real quick and eat my last red velvet cookie, so I do apologize, guys. I'm hungry. Okay. I'll eat my cookie real quick. Gotta eat my cookie. Well, thank you, Josh Man. I appreciate it. I hope that you have a good. I think it's nighttime for you. If it is, have a good night. Love you. Thank you for dropping in. I know, okay, Panda. I'll still be here. I'm just gotta finish my cookie and then continue. Just pull fucking cookies out of nowhere. The street down cookies. Boom, cookies all the time. Ah. Ah, I can't open them. Give me a second. I can do this. There's stupid fucking one of those stupid fucking circular stickers on it to keep it from opening. I just want my snickerdoodle. Yeah. It's so good. Alright. I have so many cookies. I have so many snacks. I have cake in my fridge too. Okay. Alright, hold on, let me take a break. Alright, there we go. Yep. Shantae, an obscure protective goddess whose name means widow, and who is associated with that aspect of Isis who lost her husband and then brought him back to life. This aspect was referred to as Isis Shantae, quite likely invoked as a protectress of widows, but references to her are rare, and Isis fulfilled that role as she did so many others. Scroll a little bit more. There we go. Shepet, a protective goddess who is an aspect of the hippopotamine deities Ruret or Tauret, worshipped at Dendera. In iconography, she appears like either of these two, but with a crocodile head. Hold on. Oh, my nose is all runny. Sesmetet, a protective Leonine goddess known as Lady of Punt, and most likely an important goddess brought to Egypt through trade with Punt. She's generally regarded as an aspect of Bastet or Sekhmet, but quite possibly she was a much older deity whose attributes were absorbed by later Leonine goddesses. Her name is mentioned as early as the First Dynasty and lent itself to the Sesmetet girdle, a belt of beads worn by the kings of that time. She is depicted as a woman with the head of a lion. Shesmu, god of wine and later of perfume and plenty, who personified the positive and negative aspects of drunkenness. Shesmu is depicted in the pyramid text 403 killing and cooking the gods for the king's pleasure, and by the Middle Kingdom was seen tormenting the souls of the dead as he lassos the damned and corrals them for slaughter, squeezing their heads like grapes in a bloody image of destruction. His image was softened by others, showing his benign and peaceful side as lord of the winepress, and this was softened further as he became associated with oils and perfumes. I have to adjust how I'm sitting. My one leg under the other is not comfortable for very long, and I'm sticking to my chair. I'm just gonna switch legs here, which one I'm sitting on, and adjust how I'm sitting. There we go. Yep. Shu, the primordial god of air, whose name means emptiness. He was born at the beginning of creation of Atum and sent child. Hi. Hi, pretty. What? Oh, went one leg under the other? Yeah, it's absolutely terrible. I hate it. Okay. Creation of Atum and sent to create the world with his sister Tefna, goddess of moisture. The two were gone so long that Atum came to miss them and sent his eye, the eye of Ra, in search of them. When the eye returned with them, Atum was so happy he cried, and his tears created human beings. She and Tefnut then mated and gave birth to Geb and Nut, who Atum pushed high apart from each other, providing a place for humans to live. Mist was attributed to him as lakes of Shu, and the clouds as bones of Shu, and he's also associated with light and brightness. In this regard, he came to be linked with Thoth and Khonsu, both associated with the moon because of moonlight. Sia, the personification of perception and thoughtfulness, who represented the heart, seat of emotion, thought, and character. Sia formed a dyad with Hu, representing the tongue, personification of the authority of the spoken word, and a triad with Hu and Heka, god of magic and medicine, but also the primordial force in the universe which empowered life and sustained Mott. Sia represented the intellect, while Hu symbolized the word of Ptah, or Atum. which brought thought into reality, and Heka was the underlying force which gave them power. Sia is depicted as a man standing at the right side of Ptah, later Atum-Ra, and held his papyrus scroll. In the Valley of the Kings, he is seen in paintings as a member of the crew aboard Ra's sun barge. Sky Bull, the deity who presided over the heavens and the afterlife as a protector, also known as Bull of the West, for his association with the afterlife. Commonly understood to be the husband of the 7 cows which are seen with him. Sobek, an, an important protective deity in the form of a crocodile or a man with a crocodile's head. Sobek was a god of water, but also associated with medicine and particularly surgery. His name means crocodile, and he was lord of marshes and wetlands and any other wet areas in Egypt. In the pyramid texts, he is claimed to be the son of Neith and was worshipped widely from the Old Kingdom onwards. As god of wetlands, he was associated with fertility and procreation, but as the crocodile god, also with unexpected death. He was said to separate wives from their husbands at a whim. Sobek lived on a mythical mountain at the horizon, which he ruled from, and so was linked to the authority of the king, as he himself was lord of a domain. This link with the horizon associated him with Ra and led to the form of Ra known as Sobek Ra. Sobek is one of the best known gods of ancient Egypt and was extremely popular in his time. His priests kept live crocodiles in the temples who were fed lavishly on the best cuts of meat and treated better than many human beings of the time. When these crocodiles died, they were mummified and buried with all the care given to a person. He was also associated with the Nile, which was said to issue forth as the sweat of Sobek. Sokar, or Seker, a protective falcon god of Memphis, who was originally an agricultural deity and one of the oldest in Egypt. His festival was one of the earliest observed and merged with the Khoiak festivals of Osiris, continuing to be celebrated throughout Egypt's history. He evolved from a god of agriculture and growth to the god of craftsmen and guardian of the Memphis necropolis after Osiris became more popular. Sokar is often depicted as a funerary mound surrounded by falcon heads, as a falcon or as a falcon-headed man. He is associated with the afterlife as guardian of the entrance to the underworld and the god who carries the deceased king's soul in his barge to paradise. In time, he became associated with Ptah and then Osiris to eventually combine by the Middle Kingdom into Ptah Sokar Osiris, who is a hybrid funerary deity presiding over the afterlife. Sopdu or Soped or Sopedu, a protective god of the eastern border of Egypt who guarded over the outposts and soldiers on the frontier. He's depicted as as a falcon with a flail over the right wing, or as a bearded man with a crown featuring 2 feathers. Subdu was associated with Horus and the deified king in his astral form. Wilkinson writes, the deceased king, in his role as Osiris Orion, is said to impregnate Isis as the star Sothis and to produce Horus Sopdu. In the earthly realm, he ensured the proper resources reached the eastern border garrisons and helped the king control native populations in those regions. Sothis, the personification of the star Sirius, the dog star, whose appearance heralded the annual inundation of the Nile. She was worshipped as a cow goddess in the pre-dynastic period associated with Sirius. She was the consort of Sa, who personified the constellation Orion, and the two were associated with Osiris and Isis. In this role, she was the mother of Sopdu and so appealed to as a protective influence. She was also associated with Satis, who was linked to the inundation of the Nile as consort of Khnum. Early depictions of Sothis represent her as a cow with a plant between her horns, while later images show her as a woman wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt with horns on her head or feathers with a five-pointed star above her. She became increasingly identified with Isis and was eventually absorbed into that goddess completely. Isis refers to herself as Sothis in a copy of the text of the Lamentations of Isis and Nephthys from the Ptolemaic dynasty, showing how the assimilation was almost complete by that time. Souls of Nekhen and Pe, protective spirits who were considered the ancestral souls of the city of Nekhen in Upper Egypt, also known as Herakonopolis, and the city of Pe in Lower Egypt, also known as Buto. These spirits symbolically united Upper and Lower Egypt and served the king in life and through death. While the king lived, he was identified with Horus, who the souls encouraged, and when the king died, he became associated with Osiris, whom the souls mourned and honored. Souls of Pe are depicted as men with falcon heads and those of Nekhen as jackal-headed. Both are seen in tomb inscriptions of the king kneeling to honor the deceased king's arrival in the afterlife. Ah, my freaking... Star deities. Gods and goddesses identified with the night sky. By the time of the Middle Kingdom, the Egyptians had identified 5 of the planets, which they referred to as stars that know no rest, and associated with gods. They called Mercury Sebegu, a form of the god Set, Venus, the one who crosses and god of the morning, Mars, Horus of the horizon and Horus the red, Jupiter, Horus who limits the two lands, Saturn, Horus, bull of the heavens. Further, the star Sirius was associated with Sothis, and then Isis, while Orion represented the god Sa, father of the gods. The appearance of Sirius heralded the inundation of the Nile, the promise of fertility, and represented the cynical nature of existence, and so came to be linked with Osiris, the dying and reviving god, and Isis, the one who revived him. The stars were then called followers of Osiris, who sailed across the night sky in accordance with divine pattern. Sa and Sothis in the heavens reflected the divine couple Osiris and Isis, and the god Sopdu, son of Sothis, the astral form of Horus. Thus, the night sky told the stories of the most meaningful stories of Egyptian culture and assured the people of an eternity in the god's presence when they looked up at the stars. Sutek, the Semitic name for the god Set, which the people know as the Hyksos identified during the Second Intermediate Period. The Hyksos identified Set with the warlike aspect of their god Baal. Set was referred to as Sutek through the region of Ramesses II and invoked as a vanguard in war. Oh, there's so many. I'm gonna have to call it at some point because there's so many, and I don't want to spend forever on Egyptian. There is a lot. Okay, I have to remember I'm at T's. T's, there's a lot. Actually, oh no, there's not too many left. I should be able to get through this then. I just don't want to spend forever on Egyptian. I love Egyptian mythology, but there's a lot, and I don't want to spend forever on it. Tabitjet, a protective goddess specifically against poisonous bites and stings. She was frequently invoked in healing spells and associated with the god Serket. Eventually, she was absorbed into Isis. Tassanet Nofret, a protective goddess of Komombo, whose name means the good sister or the beautiful sister. She was a local manifestation of the goddess Hathor, consort of Horus and mother of Penebtawi. That's difficult to say. Tatanen, an earth god who personified the primordial mound at creation and symbolized the land of Egypt. He is most likely the same god referred to as Kenti. Oh, nope. I'm gonna fuck that one up. Hi, Victor. In the period of the Old Kingdom, he was worshipped at Memphis during the Middle Kingdom and continued to be venerated primarily in that region through the rest of Egypt's history. His association with the primordial mound linked him with Ptah, and through Ptah with Atum and Ra, the other names for the creator god or sun god. Tatanen was a bisexual god referred to as mother of all the gods in one text. Taweret or Tauret, a protective goddess in the form of a hippopotamus, the most famous hippopotamus deity from ancient Egypt, associated with both Isis and Hathor. Taweret is a goddess of childbirth and fertility who is very popular throughout Egypt's history. She is invoked regularly for protection of children and help during pregnancy and birth. The ancient Egyptians observed the female hippopotamus to be extremely protective of her children, which led to the form of this goddess. The male hippopotamus was very aggressive and considered one of the most dangerous animals in Egypt, so he was associated with the god Set, resulting in images of Taweret as consort of Set, even though the two deities had nothing in common. Taweret is closely associated with Hathor and called follower of Horus, both of which distance her from Set. She is further identified as the consort of Bes, the dwarf god of childbirth, sexuality, humor, and war. Like Bes, Taweret was featured on household items such as furniture, cosmetic cases, pots, spoons, and infertility images in the home. Tayet or Tate, goddess of weaving, who provided the clothes for the king. She was worshipped. That almost went up my nose. She was worshipped from the Old Kingdom, where she was represented as guarding the king's head, protecting him after death, gathering up his bones, and assuring him welcome by the other gods in the afterlife. She later became associated with embalming and was said to weave the cloth for the embalming tents and later the bandages used for wrapping the mummy, which were known as wrappings from the hand of Tayet, which associated with her with Memphis. Well, I try to do it every week. Hoping I can get through Egyptian tonight. So I can start a new one. I have 3 choices and it'll be voted on. If I don't get enough votes to make a decision tonight, it will be put on Twitter. So everybody will have to revote. I apologize, but. What? Bullfinches? I don't know what those are. At the moment, my brain's not connecting what those actually are, so. Wait, why am I questioning it? Hold on. I have Google on my phone. I have this wonderful thing called Google. Oh, yeah, Bullfinch's Mythology. It's a book. My bad. Somebody said that to me, and like I talked about it with somebody else. What? What, monkey? What are you doing over there? I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you later. I'm gonna come cuddle. Yeah, I've seen the book. I'm not too huge into Greek and Roman just because I feel that it is overdone, I guess, in a way. Okay, give me just a second. Hold on. Mythology is so my thing. I love mythology so much. I don't know. I love the stories. Well, most of the stories. And that's also part of why I don't like Greek. Because, like, some of the stories are just. are just a mess. Or just a mess. Okay. Ah. Okay. Yeah, no. Mythologies are like my thing. It totally fits me though, right? Ah! Knocking shit over. Okay. Close out everything. Yeah, that's fine. Close out of that. Close out of that. Ooh, my phone needs to charge. Give me a moment. Thank God for wireless chargers. Set that on there, and it'll charge. Okay. Where was I? Oh, right. Okay. Thank you, Panda. Yeah, there was 4, and I couldn't pick which one. Like, I was torn between them, so I was like, I'm just gonna let my viewers pick. And they picked this one. Why do you not want to charge? I'll hold this off this for a minute. I really need that to charge. My phone is really low. Tefnut, god of moisture, sister of Shu, daughter of Autumn, at the creation of the world. Shu and Tefnut were the first 2 gods Autumn created either by mating with his shadow or by spitting. R.H. Wilkinson notes that her name represents the sound of spitting, and she was often represented by a pair of lips spitting in late texts. She is goddess of the atmosphere of the lower world, the earth, just as Shu is god of the upper atmosphere above the earth. Tefnut is the mother of Geb and Nut, who were born so human beings could have somewhere to live. She is most often depicted as a woman seated with a lion's head or a serpent with a lion's head. Tenenit, or Tegeninit, goddess of beer, brewing, and childbirth. Her name comes from Tenemu, which means beer. She was the consort of the god Montu and associated with Sekhmet as a goddess of royal births. She is the patron goddess of brewers. Tetrads, representations of completeness corresponding sometimes to the 4 cardinal points of the compass and best represented by the 4 sons of Horus. Balance was an important concept to the ancient Egyptians, and the numbers 2, 4, and 8 figure significantly in representations of the deities, as do 3, 6, and 9. Every male goddess has a female counterpart or a feminine aspect. The 4 goddesses, Isis, Neith, Nephthys and Serket watch over the four sons of Horus, and the Ogdod was the grouping of the 8 gods of creative substances. Thoth, god of writing and wisdom. One of the most important deities in the Egyptian pantheon, worshipped from the pre-dynastic period on to the Ptolemaic dynasty, the last to rule Egypt. He was probably originally a lunar god, son of Atum, but later texts represent him as the son of Horus. Thoth is depicted in some texts as a baboon, but mostly as a man with the head of an ibis, holding a writing implement. He is credited with inventing writing and was the record keeper of the gods. He was known as Lord of Time and Reckoner of Years because he marked the passage of time and through the powerful magic of his divine knowledge of words, gave the king a long reign so he could maintain order on earth. He was the patron god of libraries and scribes. In every story told of him, Thoth is the divine friend and benefactor of humanity who gave people understanding through the gift of the written word. He appears in one story as gambling for the 5 days required for Mutt to give birth to the first 5 gods, and in others as meditating between the gods and mediating between the gods and delivering messages. In the afterlife, he stands with Osiris and keeps records in the Hall of Truth at the ritual of the weighing of the heart. His consort is Sheshat, his daughter or his wife, who was his female counterpart and also patron deity of libraries and books. Nenyet, a protective goddess from the 12th dynasty, who was most likely worshipped earlier. She was consort of the god Montu and was primarily worshipped as Hermonthis Armant near Thebes. Tree goddesses. A number of well-known Egyptian goddesses were associated with trees, most notably Isis, Hathor, and Nut. Male gods were sometimes linked to a certain tree, but it seems only in specific myths or imagery. Hathor was famously associated with the sycamore tree and known as Lady of the Sycamore, but Isis was also linked to this tree. The practice of burying a body in a wooden casket was thought to be a return of the deceased to the womb of the mother goddess. Thank you, Inked. You are one of the ones that voted for it. Right? It turned out really well. It was. I'm really happy with it. Oh, no, hold on. Ah. Put my hair behind my ear because it's being difficult. I have to have my freaking headset off though, which sucks. Because I don't have a standalone mic. It's not yours. I don't know why you keep I don't know why you keep forgetting that that's not your. That's not what it is. I'm never gonna change it. I know I didn't change it. Nightbot's just being stupid. There it is. It's never gonna change. Triads. Important groupings of 3 deities, usually a father god, mother god, and child god. The 2 best known being the Theban triad of Amun, Mutt, and Khons, and the Abydos triad of Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Ooh, nope, need to put my glasses back on. Can't do it. Nope. There are examples of other triads, however. Alright, Panda. Have a good night. Gonna go meditate. Well, have fun. I'd fall asleep, to be honest. Which did not follow patterns such as Amun-Ra Triad, where all three gods represented the same celestial power. Triads are also seen in depictions of the afterlife where ram, lion, and jackal-headed gods are grouped together. Tutu. Tutu. A protective god known as he who keeps enemies at a distance, worshipped during the latter part of Egypt's history. He warded off demons and black magic and was depicted as a striding lion with the head of a man, large wings, and a snake for a tail. Hi, Dad. Thank you for having me tabbed. Hi, Scooter. Uat the personification of the Mediterranean Sea. Wadjet or Uto. I'm not going to try and pronounce the first one because I'm going to get it wrong. But the other two are easy, so it's Wadjet or Uto. Associated with Nekhbet, a protective goddess of Lower Egypt, she is depicted as a serpent with a woman's head. She is an aspect of Wadjet, sister of Nekhbet, in later images from Lower Egypt. Thank you, Inked, for doing that shout out, by the way. I really appreciate it. Unut, Wenet, or Weenut, a protective goddess worshipped at Hermopolis, and known as the Swift One. She was depicted as a woman with a rabbit's head, or a serpent with a rabbit's head, and is often referred to as the rabbit goddess. She is associated with the god depicted as a man with a rabbit's head, who is an aspect of Osiris or sometimes Ra. She is known primarily from amulets showing her image. Wadjet, a great protective goddess and patroness of Lower Egypt, one of the oldest deities in the Egyptian pantheon, represented as the rearing cobra, which became the king's insignia. She was also referred to as Udjet. I think it's Udjet. I'm gonna fuck that. That doesn't sound right, but we're gonna go with. Monkey bite. What are you crying about over there? In her aggressive form, and was the counterbalance to the more motherly Nekhbet, her sister. Wadjet was worshipped as an important goddess in the pre-dynastic period, and by the early dynastic period was the supreme deity of Lower Egypt, represented frequently with Nekhbet, who symbolized Upper Egypt. She was the daughter of Ra, and one of the goddesses featured in stories about the Eye of Ra. At the dawn of creation, she was sent forth by Ra as his eye to find Shu and Tefnut when they had gone off to create the world. She planted the first papyrus plants, laid out the papyrus fields in the swamps of the Nile Delta, and helped Isis raise Horus there when they were hiding from Set. Among her titles is Weret Hekau, meaning great of magic, and she was regularly invoked for protection against demons, bad luck, or ghosts. Wajwer, or Wat-ur, the personification of the Mediterranean Sea, whose name means the Great Green. Recent scholarship has changed the traditional view of this god, and he is now believed to have personified the lakes, swamps, and lagoons of the Delta region near the Mediterranean. Wilkinson notes inscriptions which reference crossing the Great Green by foot, which would indicate a land crossing through the Delta region instead of the sea. He was worshipped as early as the Old Kingdom and continues to be referenced through the rest of Egypt's history, especially through protective amulets and tomb inscriptions. Waset, or Wasret, a protective goddess of the city of Thebes, whose name means the powerful female one. She was the personification of the city, which was also known as Waset. She was originally an aspect of Hathor, but emerged with her own distinct character and iconography by the time of the Middle Kingdom. She is depicted She is depicted as a woman holding the wasp scepter, an ankh, and a staff adorned with ribbons, but is also shown with a bow and arrows and an axe representing the military might of Thebes. Weneg, a protective god first referenced in the Old Kingdom period, who held up the sky and maintained order between the heavens and the earth. He is closely associated with Mott the concept and Mott the goddess, who personified harmony in that he served as a just mediator between the gods and their disputes. Wenenu, a protective god, aspect of Osiris or sometimes Ra, consort of a nut, he is depicted as a rabbit-headed man. Wepset, a protective goddess whose name means she who burns, who destroys the enemies of Osiris. She is usually represented as a serpent, but later as a woman wearing the uraeus of horns and the sun disk overhead. She features in stories concerning the Eye of Ra and is one of the personifications of the distant goddess motif, where the Eye of Ra departs from the god and is returned or returns itself, bringing transformation. Wepwawet, one of the most ancient gods of Egypt, and the oldest depiction of a jackal god predating Anubis, with whom he is often confused. His name means opener of the ways, and this has been interpreted as opening the way for king in battle, opening the way to the afterlife, and opening the way at one's birth. He is depicted on the Narma palette and is associated with Wadjet. He eventually became closely associated with Horus and as Webwawet Ra with the sun god Ra. He is depicted as a jackal, sometimes wearing a scarf with a falcon before him. Were the cow or Weret Hakau, an important protective goddess, or more often an epithet applied to other female deities such as Isis. The name means great of magic and is associated with the uraeus and the crown of Lower Egypt. Wadjet is known as Weret Hakau, as is Isis, but the name seems to have also designated a specific goddess of protection depicted as a rearing serpent, although this could simply be Wadjet in her aggressive form. Ya is also Aya. Yam, the Phoenician god of the sea who battled the Lord Baal for control of the world. He entered the Egyptian pantheon through trade and made his way into Egyptian mythology through stories of his battles with Set. He was the personification of the raging sea and greatly feared. No temples were ever raised to him, but he is referenced in some manuscripts, which indicate he was a concern to seafarers who may have worn amulets with his image for protection. And last is Zenanet, another name for Isis in the city of Hermonthis, modern-day Armant, near Thebes. And that is the end of the Egyptian pantheon, which doesn't have a clear, besides the top three, doesn't have a clear like ladder of who goes where. Unlike the Greeks or stuff. That's Egyptian. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm going to make the poll for which one comes next. Which mythology next? Let's see, we got Celtic. And alright, 10 minutes and start poll. Yeah, of course. The poll is now up for what is next. So, you guys vote to adjust this. And relax a little bit. And go back to just chatting, because that doesn't need to be up anymore. It's gonna be interesting what people choose. I think any of the choices would be fun to do. One of which I actually practice personally. But that's just me. But I'm not about to influence people, so I'm not gonna tell you guys which one. You guys can speculate on that one, or until I do it. Oh, ow, 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 ow. One which I actually have a whole book on, so this will be interesting to see which